Hello, welcome to Coding Camp Day 3. This will be our first of the online series of the Coding Camp. And let's get to it. So, Devansh, you want to go over what we're doing today and what we're doing for the rest of the camp?
Yeah, so we've already covered our intro with Scratch and moved on to print statements with Java. And so today we're going to be starting variables with Java. And some of you may not know what variables are yet. And it's a really cool concept and it's really useful. And we'll have some practical applications of Java today. So really excited to get to that. On June 13th, we'll be doing keyboard input where you guys can input your own values into the program. And on June 15th, we'll be covering if statements and we'll be combining everything to create the card game Blackjack within Java. Some of you may have heard of that card game. And then June 17th, which will be asynchronous. So there will not be a video for that. We will be giving you guys a project called Speeding Tickets and hoping you guys can complete that using everything you've learned from these past 5 sessions.
All right. So, today, again, we're continuing Java, and we'll be reviewing print statements from last time, and then we'll start learning variables through a fun project at the end. So, if you guys could follow along if you want, or watch the YouTube video and do it on your own, please go to codehs.com. And for a quick refresher, you guys can pause the screen here. This is how you create an account and start a new project on CodeHS. So again, if you need more time on the screen, feel free to pause. But once you go to codehs.com, it should take you to this screen. Once you do that, click Sandbox in the top left, and we'll name our project Variables. And we'll create our program, and again, we'll click Java Main, and then create program in the bottom right. And then once we do that, it should take us to a screen that is right over here. Now again, if you guys remember from last time, we have to name our program name the same as our file name. So we'll name our program name today. We can call it the same thing, variables. And we have to match this name over here by clicking rename to the name of the program. And we'll call this variables.java. Always remember to have the .java so the computer knows it is a Java file. We click rename, and now let's just test our program to make sure nothing's going wrong. We hit run over here, and nothing happens, so we know that we can start coding in this middle section. And Devon, do you want to explain what these are again?
Right. So this is the starter code that you always get when you create a new project in CodeHS. So CodeHS is really helpful in that it creates this for you. It's automatic. And you're going to need this every time you start a new project. Whenever you want to code anything, you have to have this public class variables and then all these other lines of code and the brackets as well. So what they're used for goes beyond the scope of this course. This is an intro level Java course, but you just need to know that make sure to not delete them and you need them when you start coding.
So we'll get into a review of what we did last time, which were print statements and println statements or print line statements. So we'll start off by just printing system.out.print. And remember what this means is we're calling to the system with the capital S because capitalization is really important in Java. And so for certain words and certain values, they'll have capital letters, and that's something you'll just have to memorize. But we'll start out by telling the system what do we want it to do? Well, we want it to output something. And what do we want it to output is we want it to print something in this box over here. So we're saying system.out.print, and we'll just write welcome to day 3 of the coding camp. And what goes at the end of lunch?
Yeah, so we need to have that punctuation in Java. So it's going to be a semicolon.
Semicolon. So we test our program. We see that it says welcome to day 3 of the coding camp, exactly what we want it to say. Now we'll move on and we'll do another print statement, system.out.print, but this time we'll put the ln here. And I'll write, remember that print ln makes a new line. And then I'll close the parentheses and I'll put the semicolon. So let's run this program and let's see what it does. Devansh, do you want to explain what it does?
Right. So if you remember from the last class, day 2, println serves as sort of the enter key in Java. Whenever we hit the enter key, it's after the text. So after remember that println makes a new line, the computer has now hit the enter key and moved on to a new line. However, for the first line on line 5, there is no println, which means it never hit the enter key and it put remember that println makes a new line on the same line as welcome to day 3. So that's sort of how println works, and that's a little refresher of println.
And let's see this in action. Let's do another statement, system.out.print, and we'll do another println, and we'll write hello from Tutors for Change. Always remember the semicolon. And let's see when we run this, what happens. And it created a new line after the remember that println makes a new line. So remember, the computer typed this line, remember that println makes a new line. It hit enter after this exclamation point, and then it created a new line for hello from Tutors for Change.
And
Again,
UV,
yes.
now do you want to show them what happens when we don't put anything in the parentheses?
Yeah, so I can put an empty println statement, which is essentially system.out.println, but I don't put anything in the parentheses. This means that the computer is not going to type anything or not going to print anything, and it'll just make a blank line. So I'll put a line after that and say, I love to code. And let's see what this does. And this empty println statement actually made an empty line, just an empty space in between, well, hello from Tutors for Change and I love to code. So that was a quick refresher of what we did last time. Again, feel free to pause and rewind if that didn't make sense or you need some more time with it. But now we're going to move on to variables, which is our new topic for today. And Java has 3 types of basic variables. Devansh, what are they?
So they are int, double, and string. And they're written in the following format. You have type, so that where it says type right now, highlighted in red, that is where you would put one of those 3 types, int, double, or string. And then you have the name of the variable. In Java, you can give your variables any name that you want. So it could be int dog, int UV, int Devansh. It can really be anything, and you can just type that out in normal English. And then you have the equal sign to tell the computer that you want to assign a value to that variable. And after that equal sign, you have that value. So you could put a number for int and double, which we'll get into how they work in just a second. But you can either put a number or a word.
And so let's see this in action. We'll go here and we'll put another empty print line statement just to have some space between that and our new code. And we'll start with ints. We'll start by creating an int and we'll call it int age. So you can see once I typed int, it changed colors to show that I'm creating a variable. And the name of the variable, again, is going to be age. So this is the type of the variable, and this is the name. I can name this whatever I want. I can name it age, I can name it UV, I can name it Devansh, anything I want. So I'll name it age, and I'll put 20. And again, for every line of code in Java, you always have to end it with a semicolon, which is our punctuation. So we just created a variable called int age. And now let's do the same thing, but with the next type of variable, which is a double. And we just talked about the int exactly, which is which is an integer. And an integer is, Devon, you want to explain what that is?
Sure. So when we type int, like Yuvi said, it's basically a short form that we use in Java for integer. Now, some of you may not know what an integer is. So an integer is any non-decimal number, and it can be positive or negative. If you remember in Scratch, we still use negative numbers to make the cat go backwards. Same thing in Java, we can use positive or negative numbers. So the only thing with an integer or an int, what we use in Java, is that it has to be a whole number. So all of these examples you see from negative 150 to 1000, they are all examples of ints. There are no decimals and they are whole numbers. So that is the purpose of the variable int. It stores a whole number.
So before I got a little ahead of myself and I already created the variable. But again, I typed in int, I called it age, and I named it 20. I gave it a value of 20. And again, I can give this any value. I can give it -10, I can give it 20, I can give it 0, I can give it 1, but I can't give it anything with a decimal. So like we just said, an integer is any non-decimal number that is positive or negative. So I can give it any of these values. So I'll just give it 20 for now. And that's our first type of variable that we're talking about today, which is an int or an integer. Then our second type of variable is a double. Devansh, what is a double? What's the difference between a double and an int?
Right. So a double is quite similar to an int, but the one key difference that you have to remember is that now a double can store any number, and that includes decimals. So once again, positive or negative. Um, so these examples are negative 10.543, 0, 1, 12.5. As you can see, it can store whole numbers as well. 0 and 1 are whole numbers that we just used int for, but we can use a double for the same exact thing. And we can also use a double for a number that has decimals.
So let's create a double. And again, the format we're following is type name equals value. So the type is double. You can see it changes color. The name, Devonch, what's a good double? What's a good decimal number that we can use?
So many people are familiar with the number pi. So we could try to do that.
All right, so double pi, and pi is 3.14. And let's add some more numbers. 3.14159. And we remember always end it with the semicolon. So again, we did the type of the variable, which is a double. We gave it a name, which is pi. We can give it any name we want, and we just chose pi. And then we put a decimal value, 3.14159. And for our third type of variable, this one actually stores words.
Right. So our third type of variable is called string. And like Evie said, it stores words and then the value of the variable, which always comes after the equals sign, like we said, type name equals value. It is always kept within quotations. And the reason for this is because it is words. And if you remember from print statements, we always had to put whatever we wanted to print inside of quotations, which was also inside of parentheses. So when we create a string, we always have to make sure that our value is inside quotations.
Now let's create a string. Again, same format, type string. And there's one thing to notice here is that string is actually capitalized. The S in string is capitalized. And in Java, we mentioned that there are certain words or certain key terms that have capital letters. And this explaining why is a little bit beyond our class right now because it's just an intro course. So for now, we'll just tell you that to memorize that string starts with a capital S, and some words start with capital letters and some words do not. So for string, it starts with a capital S, and let's do color. So string color. So the type of the variable string, name is color, and we'll give it a value and we'll call it blue. Now, am I forgetting anything here?
Feel free to, actually, yeah. So as we mentioned, when we have the value of the string, we have to put it inside quotation marks because it is a word.
Exactly. And once we put it inside quotation marks, we can see that it changes color to show that we put it inside quotation marks. So now, if we run our program now, Nothing should happen because we just created three variables. We didn't print these three variables, which I'm about to
Right.
show you how to do.
So when we do this, when we do int age equals 20 or double pi equals 3.14159, we are just telling the computer to create and store these variables. So the computer has already created these variables. It has them stored within it. However, it's not outputting them. Java is all about inputs and outputs. So there is no output for these variables, but they have been made into existence.
So now we're gonna kind of combine what we did last class and what we just learned about variables. And what exactly is the whole point of variables, right? Because if I wanted to say my age is 20, I can just make a print statement that says so system.out.print, and I can make a print statement that says my age is 20 and leave it at that. But what if I want to have a changing value here? What if I want to print out my age is and put any value of 20? So
Right.
before we get to that, let's just see what happens if we just put system.out.println and we put age. And the computer prints out 20.
And
But
then the one thing to see here is that age is not in quotation marks. So we know that we taught you guys that whenever you want to use print statements, you have to have quotation marks. But those quotation marks are only if you want to print text. Right now, we're telling the computer to output a variable, which is int age. Whenever we do that, we already have um, a, a value for that variable. So whenever we're outputting variables, we don't need those quotation marks, because if we did put quotation marks around age, the computer would just output the word age, age. But we wanted to output the 20 that's assigned to the age.
and we can actually test that right now. So if we put quotation marks around age, the computer will output the word age. We take those out, and now the computer is looking. There's a variable called age, and it has a value of 20. And I print that, and it gives me 20. And the best part about variables is that I can keep this word age the same in here, calling the variable, but I can change this to anything I want. I can put, I'm 18, so I can put 18. And it gives me 18. I can put 12, and it gives me 12. So the best part about variables is that the variable itself can change, and the print statement will always give you the updated value. And now let's do it with the other variables. So if I want to print out double or pi, I can print out system.out.println, and I can always print out the number pi, right? 3.14159, and that'll give me the actual number that I put in the text. But if I want to print out the variable, it's the same thing as what I did before. I can just put pi right here, and since we assigned a value to pi, it'll print me out the exact same thing. And I can change this value to just have less digits, just only have 3.14, and it just gives me 3.14. And you guys can feel free to pause the video and see how do we print out the string color. As a hint, it's pretty similar to what we just did.
So try it out on your own and see if you get the same answer as us.
And this is how we do it. So we go system.out.println, and we just put color over here. And it gives us blue. And remember, I can change this color to anything. My favorite color is purple, so I can put purple here, and it gives me purple. So the key part about variables is that you can change the value of the variable, and this print statement will always give you the updated value. Now let's get a little more advanced, and as I was saying before, combine print statements and combine the entire print statement that we learned last time in variables that we just learned today. Devansh, you wanna explain a little bit about this?
Right. So we're going to start off with UV's example of age. So what if you wanted to print my age is, and then you wanted to have the variable after it? So everybody's ages are different. So we couldn't just have one number inside of that print statement. We couldn't just say my age is 18 and leave it at that. We want to use the variable so that way we can change int age to whatever number we want. And then the print statement will still work.
As
So how we do
saying,
that,
right, and as Devansh is saying, I can put my age is 18, but what if I want to print out my age is and give the value of this variable age, right? So this number 18 can always change depending on this value. And how we do this is something that we like to call connecting, or it's technically called concatenation, but we just like to show that you put a plus sign here, and you can put the name of the variable. So I put my name is, and I put plus, and then I put age, which is the name of the variable.
so this is sort of attaching the variable to the actual text. Remember that in our three statements above that, so lines 16, 17, and 18, those variables aren't in quotation marks because they're variables and not text. But now we want to combine text and variables. So we have the text, my age is, in quotation marks, but then we have the variable not in quotation marks, and we attach them using a plus sign.
So this plus sign has the function of not being a traditional plus sign, um, like you're adding something together, like 1 + 1 = 2. This is a sort of attaching plus sign. I'm attaching this line of text, my age is, to the value of age. So if I print this out, it'll give me my age is 12. And I can change the value of age. I can make it 18. It'll give me 18. I can make it 21. It'll give me 21. So that's the value of variables in Java. But you can see there's not a space here, right? It just says my age is 21 without a space like we would write in regular English. So this goes back to what we talked about last time, is that Java does exactly what you tell it to do. Nothing more, nothing less. So we put my age is, and then we directly attach this value of age, which is 21. So Java will print out the age, and it'll put it right next to the is. So we actually need to have a space here for it to have a space over in this output box. So we run it, and we see it functions properly. Now, let's try to do the same thing with pi. We want to say the value of pi is, and for it to give us this value 3.14. So feel free to pause the video here and try it on your own. It follows pretty much the same exact philosophy that we just did with age. And feel free to pause here and try it on your own. Okay, so we'll do the same thing. System.out.println. We can put the value of pi is, and then we put a plus sign, and we put pi. So we're attaching the variable pi to this text. We put the space here, semicolon, and we run it. And it gives us the value of pi is 3.14. And again, we can change this 3.14159, and we run it, and it'll give us the updated value of pi that we had. And lastly, let's do it with the string. And again, pause, see if you can do it on your own. I want to say my favorite color is, and output the value of color. And how we do this is system.out.println, and we say my favorite color is, and I attach the value of color. So the computer again is reading this, it's saying it's printing out my favorite color is, and then it is attaching the value of color, which is purple. I run it, and it says purple, and I can change this. Devansh, what's your favorite color?
My favorite color is green.
Green. So I put green here, and it should give me my favorite color is green. So that shows that variables are super useful in Java, and that's the main reason we use them. So let's move on. Again, if you're finding getting lost, feel free to pause or rewind. Um,
And
to
you
to
can, yeah, we'll be moving on to a different concept now, still with variables. But if you want to go back and rewatch what we just learned, feel free. So yeah, we'll be getting into the four basic operations in Java and with their symbols. So this is sort of math related, and we can use Java for all sorts of things, and math is a big part of it. So those four basic operations, which we've all learned in school, are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And we've included the symbols for them and how they're used in Java. So you've seen the addition symbol already. It's just a plus sign, like normal. That's what you use to tell Java that you want to do addition. To do subtraction, it's similar. It's just the dash, which can be found in the upper right-hand corner of your keyboard. For multiplication, we use the asterisk. So we don't use, sometimes you see just an X when you're writing that out. But in Java, you have to use the asterisk to tell it that you want to do multiplication. And then division is similar. It's not the same division symbol that we learned in school. This time it's the slash.
so let's test this out, and let's create a new set of variables. So we'll create two double variables. We'll create double, and we'll call it number one. So again, this is the type of the variable, which is double, and this is the name, so we're calling it number one. And we'll say double number one is equal to 12. And don't forget the semicolon. And since any operation has to be done between two numbers, right? If we want to if we want to use the addition, we have to have a first number and then a second number, so 1 plus 2 or 2 plus 3. So our first number, we can say it's 12, and then we'll create double number 2, and we can say it's 5.5.
And then one quick thing to note here is for the name of our variable, it has to be one word. So as we can see, UV put number one, but he didn't put a space between that number and that one, because that would be two different words. It would be number and then it would be one. So if we do that, that would give us an error. We needed to always be one word for the name of our variable.
Exactly, good point. And let's just try these operations out now. So if I want to add number 1 and number 2, right? If I want to add 12 and 5, 5.5, that's easy. But I want to do it using the variable. So this is done using a print statement. So system.out.println. And what do I do now, Devansh?
So it's going to be really simple. We don't use quotation marks since we're going to be using the variables to do calculations. All we have to do is number one, and then the plus sign, and then number two.
So since these are numbers and we don't have any text, the computer is actually just going to add these two numbers together. So if I do this and I run it, it should just give me 17.5, which is 12 plus 5.5. And same thing with all the other operations with subtraction. System.out.println, and we do number 1 minus number 2. And it gives us 6.5, which is 12.5 minus 5.5. And we can try this with any two numbers, right? We can do 50.2 and 3.9, right? We can do any two numbers. And Java, since we coded this, will give us the value of adding them together and then subtracting them.
Yep. We can also use two whole numbers if we want it. It doesn't have to always be decimals.
And then that's true. We can do 2, right? And 50. It'll give us the same, the answer. And let's try with multiplication and division. We do same thing, system.out.println, and number 1 times number 2. Right, remember the asterisk is the multiplying. Semicolon. and it gives us 50 times 2, which is 100. Try to do this last one on your own, this division one. It's pretty similar, should be the same thing. And how we do it is system.out.println number 1 divided by number 2. The dividing symbol is this little slash. When I run it, 50 divided by 2 is 25, and it gave me the right answer. And again, I can pick any number. I can put 4.5, and it gives me the updated answer every time. So that essentially is what the 4 basic operations in Java are, with their symbols and with variables. So now we're going to move on, and we're going to do a fun project. It's going to be our first project with variables.
Actually, before we do that, we're
Yes.
going to sort of combine and put everything together of what we've learned so far in just one print statement. So we know how to do calculations now. We just learned calculations. And we also know how to attach variables to text. That's the first thing we taught you guys. So using this double number one and double number two, we're going to write a line of code that has text and a calculation after it. So we want something like the product is, and product is the, if you guys don't know what product means, it's when you're multiplying two numbers together. So actually, let's start with something a little more basic. Let's say the sum. The sum is, which that's just when you add two numbers together. And then we want to have 50 plus 4.5 added together using variables. So how
Right.
would we do that, UV?
Yeah. So we can always say, right, the sum of 50 plus 4.5 is 54.5, but we want to do that using the variables. So they'll always update if we change these values over here. So we start obviously with the print statement, and it works similar to what we did earlier with the text, right? We can say the sum is, and we have to attach the calculation to this text. So we want to say the sum of number 1 and number 2 is, and we can actually do the calculation with another set of parentheses in this print statement. So we can say number 1 plus number 2. Right? So here we're saying the sum is, attaching it to it, attaching this next value to it, and we're saying number 1 plus number 2.
And the reason we have a second set of parentheses over there is because we only want the computer to output one number. We don't want it to output both number 1 and number 2. We just want it to output the sum of those two numbers put together, which would be 54.5. So we have to put it in parentheses.
If we run it, it'll say the sum is 54.5. And the good part is I can change these numbers, right? I can put 104.2, and it gives me the updated value every single time. So this, and I can do this with any of the operations. I can say the product is number 1 times number 2. If I run it, and it gives me the right answer, it gives me 5,210. So that's how we combine um, the text statements, the regular print statements with text, with variables, and then combining it with operations. And if any of this is confusing, again, as I mentioned before, feel free to pause and rewind. But now we're going to move on to our project called the Burger Project. Devansh, what is this project about?
Right. So remember at the beginning of this video, we said that today is sort of the beginning of the practical applications of Java. So you can use this for useful things. Java is definitely helpful in the real world. And this is going to be our first example of that. We're going to be creating a program that helps us with a diet, basically. So if we ate some burgers, we would want to know how it affects us.
So let's say that each burger has 590 calories on average, and we burn 100 calories per mile walked. And we want to write a program that would give us, first of all, the total number of burgers we consumed, the total number of calories consumed, and the total number of miles we would need to walk to burn all the calories that we consume. So let's do one by one since this is a lot of information. And let's go to our code and let's make an empty print line statement just for the sake of organization. And let's create a title for our project and we'll call it burger um, exercise. And to do this, we have to have this uses variables. So Devansh, what variables do you think we would need?
Right. So we're gonna need three variables for this project. We're going to need the number of burgers we consumed. As you can see, we have the list of three things. The total number of calories in each burger, which is 590, and then the calories per mile walked that we burn. So depending on how many miles we walk, there's a certain number of calories per mile that are burned.
So let's create these variables. So the first variable, we can just call it double burgers. And this will be how many burgers we ate. So for now, let's just give it a random number. Let's pick 4.
So we have
And,
eaten 4 burgers.
and let's create another one, double calories. And how many calories was it? It was 590. So there's 590 calories per burger. And the last one is another double, and we'll call it um, cows per mile. And how many was it? It was 100. So we have 3 variables, right? Type, name equals value. Type is double, name is burgers, value is 4. And we have burgers, calories, and cows per mile. And if we go to the output, we want to have first of all the number of burgers consumed. So how would we write how many burgers we've eaten using the variables?
So if you guys are feeling confident in what you've learned so far, how to combine variables with print statements and how to do calculations, feel free to actually try to do all three of these outputs on your own. UV, if you want to go back to the document, those are the 3 outputs that we need, and you guys can try to do that. Just pause the video right here and see if you can do that on your own, and then you can play it and we'll get to the answers.
So let's do the first one. The number of burgers consumed. Well, this is pretty simple, right? Burgers is 4. So we make a print statement, system.out.println, and we can say burgers eaten, and we can just attach the value of burgers, right? Burgers. If I run this, it'll show me burgers eaten 4. I can remember I can change this value to 5, and it'll update this variable and it'll give me 5. So that was the first one, pretty simple. Now let's look at the total number of calories consumed. Well, how do we do that, Devansh? How do we find out if we have the number of burgers, the number of calories per burger? How do we figure out the total number of calories?
Right. So as UV said, we only know the total number of burgers eaten and how many calories are in one burger. So that 590 is only for one burger, except we've eaten 5 burgers. So to find the total number of calories, we're going to need to do 590 times 5 multiplied by 5.
And we do this by, first we put total number of calories consumed as a regular text. And then we put a plus sign. And then we add, and we can always do this, right? We can do 590 times 5 in this statement, but we want to do it using the variables. So similar to what we did over here is we do burgers times calories. We put our semicolon at the end. So we can see here that we wanted to know the total calories consumed. So if we did 5 burgers with 590 calories per burger, we have total calories consumed of 5 times 590, or burgers times calories. If we
And we
try
do remember that we do have that second set of parentheses. The burgers times calories is in a second set of parentheses.
exactly. And the good part about this is if I decided to go to In-N-Out, which has pretty big burgers, and and these burgers ended up being 700 calories per burger, our calculation is updated. It'll give us more calories. And if I decided to eat less burgers, only 3, our calculation will be updated because we use the variables over here. Now let's do the last one, which is a little more complicated. The total number of miles I would need to walk to burn off all the calories. Now, how do I do this? Obviously, it
So,
starts, yes.
right. So we would need to figure out the miles that we need to walk to burn off every single calorie that we have eaten. So once again, we're going to have to do some calculations. So we'll have to do the total calories, which we've already figured out how to do. All we have to do is burgers times calories. UV has already created that calculation. Except now we'll have to divide that by the calories per mile variable, because that's how many calories per mile that we can burn. So the total calories divided by calories per mile.
And we can start this off by first making our text miles to walk to burn off all those burgers, right? And we put our plus sign. And how we do this is so we need to have our total number of calories and divide that by calories per mile, which is 100. So so we have our total calories and we burn 100 calories per mile. So we want to do burgers times, let's make this box a little bigger. Burgers times calories. Then we want to divide this by calories per mile.
Now, before we move on, UV, if you want to go back, if you want to just stay there for a second, this setup might look a little confusing. So let's just break it down before we run our program. Now, we did say that whenever we're doing a calculation that's attached to a print statement, we need to have that second set of parentheses. So we have the burgers times calories. And since that is a calculation that's attached to this text, miles to walk to burn off all those burgers, we have to have the second set of parentheses. However, when we only have one variable, we don't need to do that second set of parentheses. If you go to like line 19 and line 20 and line 21, we can see we didn't have a second set of parentheses around age or pi or color because that was just one variable. And it's the same way when you're doing calculations. When we did burgers times calories, which has a second set of parentheses, divided by the division symbol, which is the slash, we didn't have to put a second set of parentheses around calories per mile. We just had to leave it as calories per mile because it's one variable. So that's a little bit of an explanation.
All right, so if we run this, and we can see the miles to walk to burn off all those burgers, those 21 miles. It multiplied, it used our total calories, and then it divided it by the number of calories per mile that we walked. But and the good part about this is that I can change this, right? I can do, what if I'm somehow burning, what if it's really hot one day and I'm burning way more calories? I'm burning 300 calories per mile. And I'm not walking, maybe I'm running. So I'm saying calories per mile is 300. And it reduces the number of miles from, I think it was 21 before, to 7. And I can change any of these. I can say calories per burger is only 300. And we're eating 4 burgers. So it gives us the miles to walk to burn off all those burgers is 4 miles.
Now let's just change it back to what the original one was for anyone who may have tried to do it on their own. So it was 4 burgers, 590 calories, and then 100 calories per mile.
And if you did this, your answer should be 4, 2360, and 23.6.
So once again, this is a really useful application of Java. If you were ever trying to go on a diet, like I said before, or trying to just watch your weight, you could use, this is a basic program, of course, there are more complex versions, but for the sake of the intro course, you could use something like this to track your calories.
So that is the conclusion of our first burger project with variables. And again, we have that'll be all for today, but we have an extra practice that we'll put in the description of this YouTube video. And it goes over what we did today, and it gives an extra practice project for you to do to reinforce your knowledge of variables.
And walks you through step by step what to do. It shows you how to create the class, the project, the file name, all that. And the key for this project, so once you finish it, if you yeah, we won't show it for too long, but it will be at the end of the document. So at the very bottom of the document, you can find the answer key. And once again, this link will be in the description of the video. So check the description if you would like to do the extra practice. But yeah, that's
And
all for today. Yep.
yep, thank you for watching our video, and that's all for day 3 of our coding camp.
Yeah, excited to teach you guys some more next video.